Yes, yes, yes. Welcome to Cyber Safety Net Stay Safe Online, episode 147. Conceal breaches? Bosses say yes. Yeah, I'm serious. Bosses are saying yes to concealing evidence of breaches. I'm not kidding on this one. When I read my newsletter from Secure World, I learned that 42% of IT professionals have been instructed to keep a data breach under wraps. More than 2 out of 5 times. Can you imagine finding evidence of a breach or somebody on your network who should not be there? And you tell your boss, and the boss says, keep it a secret. More than 2 out of 5 times. Also from Secure World, we learn the research comes less than a year after former Uber CSO Joseph Sullivan was convicted of attempting to cover up a 2016 hack of Uber, highlighting the fact that lying about data breaches is a serious criminal offense in many jurisdictions. And yet, it really happens. Today's presentation is sponsored by my fourth book, How Hacks Happen. In How Hacks Happen, there are two personas. There's me, Mark, the good guy, who wants to protect you, because I'm the good guy. And there's Brad Cracker, the bad guy, who wants to rip you off. He says hacking is easy, he likes the easy money, and he's pretty good at hacking. And if he hacks a lot of people and 40% don't disclose, that makes life a little bit easier for Brad and the other hackers of the world. Back in episode 102, I introduced the CIA Triad, or the Confidentiality, Integrity, Availability Triad. Since we're talking about integrity with employers, or maybe I should say company ownership, not disclosing breaches, I think we're in the integrity domain because they're lying. It really happens. Back in episode 143, I talked about Blackbot, a cloud provider for universities and hospitals. And what happened to them is they got hacked. They sent out a press release, so they disclosed, but it was insufficient. And they ended up sending out another press release a few months later. Then, a few years later, they got hit with a fine from the SEC. And the fine happened because the initial disclosure was not sufficient. So what happened, and there's more info on this back in episode 143, they got hacked. They sent out a disclosure which was not sufficient. Then they sent another disclosure a few months later, which was sufficient. Then they agreed to a fine of $30 million with the Securities and Exchange Commission. If they would have done a decent disclosure in the first place, then they would not have incurred that $30 million fine from the SEC. Now, some people say, what do I do? Well, here's what you do. You mandate full disclosure. If you're that decision maker, then you make sure your computer people, both computer guys or computer women, know that when they find evidence of a breach, they have to inform you. When I find evidence of that, or someone trying to hack in, or somebody who clicked a link they should not have clicked and end up sending spam, then I write a press release and send it to the president, to the CEO, or whomever my point of contact is. I write the press release with an audience of everybody, and the president, the CEO, or whomever my point of contact is, does the actual distribution, or maybe they don't. And I can't babysit everybody. Those of us who grew up during the Bill Clinton era know that sometimes the concealment is more disastrous than the actual act. You got to be open and honest. Bill Clinton wasn't. He lied. Look what happened to him. A Blackbot, they had an insufficient disclosure right off the bat. They got caught. Then they had to do another disclosure. Then they got hit with that $30 million fine. which was an agreement, not unilateral. It was an agreement. So I would imagine that since they agreed to pay a $30 million fine, the SEC had a bigger dollar amount before then. Pretty scary. I know your time is valuable. I know there are other places you could have been, but you chose to be here. You chose to listen to me, Mark Anthony Germanos, tell you that if you incur a breach or if you find evidence that somebody got access to your network or the data that they should not have seen, you have to disclose. That's all there is to it. Thank you for watching. Good day, everybody.